What is going on, everyone? My name's Boit, and I'm back with some more Age of Mythology, the Titans action, spawning in the left side of the map in the red color, playing as Hades. His name is Joe. His opponent today in the blue color, playing as Odin. His name is Mr. The map is Alfheim. We've got another interesting map here. Oh, a matchup actually with now Joe deciding to go in with the flavor of the month, the flavor of the year, even in the Hades, as Joe picking Hades in this one. Interesting to see him move away from the Egyptian, especially on a map like Alfheim, which you would have to expect that against Odin, Egyptian would feel a lot nicer, especially an Egyptian like Set on Alfheim against Odin. He's a really, really nice god to play. But we do see him going in with the Hades, and we'll see what his ideas are going to be. Now, for those of you kind of wondering about Joe and wondering about his level with gods that aren't Egyptian, he can play the Greeks to an incredibly high level. I've seen him play Zeus, and he's taken games off some of the best players with Zeus. I've seen him play, obviously, Hades, and he's definitely had a lot of success with Hades as well. I've even seen him playing like things like Odin and Loki in team games and having some great success with those gods. So he's definitely got the capabilities, the potential to play every single god in the game to a very, very high level. So you should never be too underestimating of Joe's power with gods not named Egyptian, not in the Egyptian category. So we do see quite a big, great hunt there onto those cows as Mr. Boat decides better to great hunt the cows than it is to great hunt the deers. But with that decision, that does make things a little bit difficult. I much prefer here, for those of you who want to play Odin yourself and want to avoid early game problems, which we are probably going to see here for Mr. Boat most likely, to avoid early game problems, the best way to play here is if you see two caribou here, jump onto the wood first, send some cows over here, and great hunt the cows and the elk in the early game. That way, you're going to be able to get yourself enough food, and you're going to be completely fine. Make sure you're going to be able to get to the classical age without too many problems. Now, we'll see if this is actually going to be a problem for Mr. Boat or not. He does already have the 7 villages over on to the deer. With that walking time, it's going to be a little bit of a problem. We'll have to wait and see how it's all going to go. As the temple going to be coming up for Mr. Boat as well. We do have the Ankh of Ra over here as well for Joe. This is a fantastic relic for basically every single civilization. Because while it's not like, it's kind of only like a quarter of like a third of a villager in a way. You get around about 1 favor every 10 seconds. So in a minute, you get 6 favor with 1 villager. So it's about a third of a villager. It's just such a nice relic to have because you don't even have to think about it. You just get the favor you need to get your Chiron out for free, basically, to get a fortress up without having to put villagers onto the temple. You're not going to get yourself, it's just a nicety. You're not going to get yourself an extra myth unit or anything like that. You're just going to be getting some of those niceties out for free in this game and not have to think about it. There's also the nose of the Sphinx here on this map with an extra 15% building hit points, which is obviously you've already got the extra, 20% building hit points? 25% building hit points there. Then you get the 15%. So now you've got 35% extra building hit points playing as Hades. You've got to be feeling very, very good about that as Joe builds the Ajax, and there's something missing in this town center. Yep, there it is. Athena coming through. That's a lot of villager idle time there from Joe. I'm not sure what he was thinking with that, but he was like, I'm just going to cut villages and try and get this relic out. To me, I don't think you got to worry about your opponent getting a Hearser all the way over to that side of the map to grab that relic before you do, if you just advance a bit faster. Anyways, both relics going to be for for Joe here. The relic's on the other side of the map here. Guys, Book of Knowledge, not the best relic there at all. The Toothed Arrows, however, very, very useful for the Battle Star. Extra 5%, what's that? Pierce damage. 5% pierce damage on your Ballista does end up being a big deal. As Athena is coming through, Freya just about to pop here for Mr. Boat as he gets his house down, and we'll see exactly what sort of a strategy he's going to be going for in this game. As an immediate forest fire getting dropped down, Joe here smartly jumps onto the pine tree, but the storehouse has been taken out, and Joe's going to be able to get himself that wood he needs to grab the town center. The question is, will he even bother getting himself out a Chiron here or not, is a big question. And generally speaking, Chiron is kind of important to be grabbed early, but I think it's honestly overvalued in this matchup and in matchups in general. In every matchup, is the second hero from Greek. If you're not going for any early harass, if you're just defending, to me, it seems like it's better to just not build the Chiron until you absolutely need to build the Chiron. If you're just defending with it. Obviously, if you're going for raids and stuff, getting the Chiron out nice and early is going to be great. If you want to take out, say, the early Valkyrie here to guarantee you don't take any pressure. Obviously, you can get the Chiron out for that as well. But my point basically is rushing the Chiron out, it's not that big of a priority because we are seeing the town center coming up. Joe's going to be able to get his Chiron relatively soon here, as well as the Ajax is in position to defend this. The raiding cavalry coming through to be a little bit annoying here, but Joe going to be able to defend this fairly easily here, you'd have to assume. As Mr. Boat's raiding cavalry simply not going to do all too much damage here. As the villager retreats back, we will be seeing that raiding cavalry getting shanked down here very, very fast. As the Valkyrie comes in onto this position, low HP villager here. Could get sniped down. One smack, two smacks. Villager down. Success. As the raiding cavalry going to pull back. They're all going to be back up to full HP with the help of the Odin regen bonus as Chiron does come out of that town center. And the raiding cavalry starting to come through as well. And now we do see the Chiron coming out here for Joe. That, honestly, he didn't have the resources to actually afford a villager there, which is fine. But also, you could probably continue to just not build the Chiron. The longer you don't build the Chiron, the more resources you get overall. You get an extra 17 seconds of villager gather time by not building the Chiron. So the longer you can delay that, the better. And at this point, I just don't think that Joe really needs it. He could have delayed it for ages. You could just leave the wood sitting in your bank, ready to build that Chiron at any moment. And then once the army comes, you just say, no worries, all good. But Mr. Boat at this point, seemingly building all of those raiding cavalry out, finishing up on the chickens over here, getting himself an armory up as well. Does he have husbandry? Yes, he does. So we might be seeing some sort of a fast heroic here, or semi-fast heroic here from Mr. Boat to attempt to put some crazy pressure onto Joe. But in classic Joe fashion, this is something that I think separates Joe from most players, is the speed at which he walls up maps. Obviously, Mr. Boat has also done the same thing over here, but Mr. Boat has had army out. Joe doesn't have any army out. So technically speaking here, you shouldn't be able to get walls up. This should be stopped. This should be a priority for a player going for a semi-fast heroic. It should be a priority to take these walls out, to take this villager out. In fact, it'd be worthwhile to just literally just send raiding cavalry or Valkyrie over onto this position to just keep an eye on it and make sure that no walls go up. But Joe gets the walls up so fast that you can't even get over there and like realize that it's happening. There's a raiding cavalry now going to be retreating. And the question is going to be, what sort of a army composition is Joe going to be going for? Seeing all of those raiding cavalry up at this point, I think an attempt at some sort of a semi-fast heroic off of these two town centers would be a really nice way to play. Idea being to make a couple of prodromus out to deal with those raiding cavalry raids. And you can also go for hoplites as well. Making archery ranges here to take out what units? There's not really anything here for the Toxotes take out at this point, so you can kind of just stay away from that for the time being, but until a little bit later, I guess. We do see Mr. Boat here is going for a town center. The walls over here do get taken out, and honestly, Joe gets a really good trade on that one. He takes out a raiding cavalry for it. As the unit's now starting to push forward to take out this position here. We'll see if Joe can put a stop to this town center going up. As Mr. Boat here, he has clicked up through Scardy. Getting this town center up is going to be a little bit of a difficult one, as he's just invested a crazy amount of resources in the heroic age. And this is a absolutely beautiful timing that's being hit here. And Mr. Boat, he has to retreat back. And this is effectively forcing Mr. Boat into a position he really does not want to be in. Which is effectively, he has to go for a timing here. He has to go for a timing, and there's not, it's really hard for him to break through the, not only the Hades Town Center with the Sentinels, but the Hades Town Center with 3,920 HP and no upgrades on it at the moment. Joe can get himself Masons as well and fortified town centers to defend against anything like this. So we see medium infantry coming through, medium cavalry coming through. The building's going to start getting pressured here as well. Mr. Boat can utilize the frost on this here if he wants. Take out these units here as the raiding cavalry waiting in behind here for the time being. More units trying to get trained here. As Joel at this point says, I don't need to be here. Let me just run back. I already stopped the town center. We're all good. We're all Gucci. Let's look at this village. Oh my God. He's so good. Who else do you see doing this? Against Norse. He just sends the villager forward. Double military academy around this one. And not only that, it's 1680 HP on those buildings because it's... Oh my God. And Mr. Boat moves over there and he's going to be like... He doesn't have the time to deal with this. He doesn't have the time at all. And the wall over here as well to block that gold mine off as the dwarves still moving around here. And Joe's just like do 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 do. Joe might even be able to get another military building in here to block these dwarves from retreating. So we do see a hill fort coming up on this position. Plenty of units out for Mr. Boat. Shouldn't have any problems where that's concerned. As we do indeed see that Joe is trying to block these ones in. And the villager, he managed... You hate to see it. You absolutely hate to see it. Oh my God. Oh dear. Is it worth it to pop these units out to try and take these villagers? The villager is now taken out. Oh dear. Aphrodite on the way for Joe. Mr. Boat is going to be furious. What are you supposed to say? What are you supposed to say? I mean, at the very least here, Mr. Boat gets some value for taking out these buildings and the units that are in them. But Joe's just getting himself so much time here. What can you do is, if you miss the boat, he's got 2,000 food in the bank. 2,000 food in the bank. Now the hill fort starting to be under pressure here. You almost have to freeze this. You don't want to, but you almost have to. Because you cannot lose this hill fort. Losing this hill fort would be less than ideal. Oh. Curse comes down, hits a couple of dwarves as well. 38 villagers for Mr. Boat. He does get all these pigs though. And he can move those back into his base and eat those and delay the farming just a little bit longer here. And the hill fort gets taken out. So after all is said and done, 4 military buildings trades for 1 hill fort. As Joe just says, great. Living the dream. Shaft mine, irrigation coming through for Joe. Joe's got so many resources in the bank, and his income is so far in front. It's almost double what Mr. Boats is in this game. There's the Minotaur coming through. The units starting to take this fight. Those Thrown Axemen are going to be doing a lot of damage here. Something that certain other Odin players do most of the time here is they just simply use Frost on the army straight away. The idea being that picking off an entire army is worth a lot of resources. So it allows you to stay with a big advantage here, as we do indeed see that Frost finally does get dropped down. And a hill fort going to be getting shot up as well, as I think that Mr. Boat was just making sure that all the population was here. And for some reason, this Nemean Lion is not getting frozen. Don't ask me why, but it happened. Vault of Erebus coming through. Heavy infantry coming through for Joe as well. That's that hill fort just about to come up. Third town center going to be coming up with 15 villages here for Joe. He's got 1,000 food in the bank to spam farms up. If you want, look at how beautiful those farms are. Look at him. Granary over here, using the granary over there. You're just a man after my own heart. Lovely. The lion was frozen by the giant while the frost dropped. Well, then why wasn't the frost giant continuing to bash that frost giant down there? Must have been a misclick from Joe or from Mr. Boat or something. I don't know. Anyways, we do see that the frost has expired there, and Mr. Boat here will be winning this fight very, very easily. So Joe has to retreat back and regroup, get himself up to population. He's only got himself a handful of military buildings here. He does need to drop down quite a few more. Generally speaking, if you're at 80 villages, you want to be having at least 8 military buildings. For every 10 villager you have, at least 1 military building. I would say it's probably per every 8 villager you have, 1 military building is the kind of production you can afford to spend. Obviously, if you're at full population, your resource count is going to go up, so you can also afford to have even more military buildings out than that. So it's just a general rule of thumb. Every 8 villages or so, 1 military building. So if you think about it, town center is worth half a military building because you have to build the villages out of it. So you have 3 town centers. That's kind of, you need 12 villages, or maybe let's call it 15 villages, to support those 3 town centers. And the rest need to be military buildings, basically, in terms of your income being spent on army, if you want to. You could be spending your income elsewhere. Anyways, we see an attempt at a town center coming up for Joe over on this location, not for Joe, for Mr. Boat on this location, as this game does seem to me to be headed in a very, very dangerous direction for Mr. Boat, and that is Hephaestus is coming through, and Joe's not being touched in this game at all. Well, he's lost 1 villager, I think. Just 1. So Joe here, he's going to get himself Forge of Olympus straight away. He's going to get himself the Plenty Vault to push his income up even more. Heavy archers coming through. Carbon is coming through. Fortified town centers coming through. Mr. Boat, on the other hand here, he's trying to get his third town center up. He does have the advantage of having the Odin income, the Norse income, but Hades is, it doesn't matter if you're this many villages in front, that income is not enough, as the Achilles comes through, takes out the Frost Giant before the special ability comes off. The army breaking through the Mr. Boat army here beautifully as the Mythic Age hits first for Joe in a very, very rare moment here. This doesn't happen all too often in the Norse versus Greek matchup. Generally speaking, the Norse player hits the Mythic Age first, but Joe hits Hephaestus first here. Forge of Olympus coming through. Flood Control coming through immediately for Joe. He knows the technologies he needs to grab immediately. He's always putting priority on those economic upgrades. As you got the armories up. Armories coming down here as that Forge of Olympus is going to allow the armory upgrades to come through incredibly fast here. Walls up on this position as well to block this location off. Joe could just move back and wall this spot off here as well, and potentially also anywhere else. But this is a very important spot here for Mr. Boat to control, to prevent any sort of like sieging of this town center to start. There's also a problem over here for Mr. Boat to deal with, which is Petropolis on this position going to be a difficulty to deal with, as the Colossus does start targeting down the town center. 3 Frost Giants are very, very close by, though, as bronze mail, copper weapons, copper shields coming through. Joe's got plenty of resources in the bank here. He's still trying to take fights at this point, and I think you'd have to assume here that Mr. Boat is winning these fights fairly easily. He just needs to send those Huskars in to take out the Toxotes. But Joe, he's just trying to trade here at the moment to keep the Norse at bay for as long as he possibly can. More military buildings coming down, fortresses coming down here for Joe as well, potentially to start making some Heliopolis here as the Perseus snipes one of those Frost Giants. Nice play there from from Joe, as Mr. Boat has to retreat back. As now we've got even more upgrades. We see the burning pitch coming through. Interesting decision for the early burning pitch. Now that could mean that potentially here Joe wants to go for immediately go for the what do you call it? Immediately go for Gastrophetes here to take out town centers and things like that. But he doesn't got any archery ranges or anything over there at that point. As the Frost Giant retreating back. Stone walls coming up for Joe as well, as he is preparing for potential Ragnaroks and everything else that can come for him. Iron weapons coming through as well. Joe's army is in an incredibly strong position. This Perseus, as people really like to say that Hades has got the worst Mythic Age hero in the game. I don't agree. I mean, of the Greeks. I mean, he's the worst in this area and in this area, but against civilizations that have got the really, really strong Mythic Age myth units, like Norse with the Frost Giant, the Frost and the Fire Giant, Hades ends up becoming a beast with Perseus because he can take out those Fire Giants easily. Whereas like a god like Zeus, who you might think Bellerophon's really, really strong, Zeus can't take out the Fire Giants easily, can't take out the Frost Giants easily at all. So we do see a sentry tower up on this position. The trade route has been started for both players here. But the town center is now starting to go down. And Mr. Boat's army at this point, just simply put, cannot match up to Joe, who's now getting himself full iron, champion infantry, champion archers coming through as well. His army is so obscenely strong here. Imagine a handful of Gastrophetes just walking over here to help take out that town center as well. The Toxotes here with Burning Pitch, they do get a significant bonus against the town center, but it's kind of like moving from doing 1 damage per second up to doing like 2 or 3 damage per second, which doesn't end up being that useful. As now Mr. Boat decides to target this army down, but Joe is just sticking at a very solid 160 population here. It's not moving. The population is not moving. Champion infantry comes through. Champion Toxotes comes through. Mr. Boat retreating back into his main base. 98 of 145 population. He's got basically exactly the same income here as Joe. You have to expect. Does he have all the upgrades here? He does have. He doesn't have irrigation. He doesn't have plow. He's getting plow though. Imagine going for winter harvest before you go for plow. That's how it works. And tier, the god of choice here for Mr. Boat. I don't understand the tier. I honestly don't think that dealing economic damage is going to help you here. You need the Fire Giants out. But tier on the way. Joe drops the fortress in the middle of the map here. Villagers are going to be grabbing that town center very, very shortly. You'd have to expect Heliopoli are out here as well for Joe. As Mr. Boat, he's just got no resources in the bank. Heavy cavalry coming through is going to be a big help. Watchtowers coming up. Joe knows that there's very little he can do to throw this game. So there's 2 options here for Mr. Boat to take. Option number 1 is to go for Fimbulwinter, which I think that Joe's not going to care all too much about. And option number 2 is Ragnarok. So how do you survive Ragnarok? Well, you put walls up everywhere. You put towers up everywhere. We do see the town center attempting to get snuck back up here. Joe at this point here does not spot that. He does not see that one there. As we do see the towers going after each other. As Joey's got a very strong tower over there. And for some reason here, Joe's being very, very nice and allowing the town center to come back up. But now we see Joe saying, all right, I see you here. Not today. 1 billion resources in the bank here. Joe could also go for a Titan if he so chose at this moment. And this Fimble Winter here, while it does stop the production of Joe, look at the towers. I don't even know if it will. Fimble Winter will get cast, and the towers that are placed in this position, the towers literally just kill off the wolves basically instantly, right? A couple of villages will go down, but it's not going to do anything. As the villagers have to retreat back for the time being, but Joe's still sitting at full population here, basically more fortresses. This is an interesting way to build a fortress. Fortress with the guard towers behind the fortress. Might have to steal that one. As the donkey caravans getting taken down over there as well. Joe's not even building any units at this point. He's just like, I'm going to decide to build a completely different army here. Potentially after all is said and done, as the villagers get sent back. We do see the villager production has to get started yet again. As Joe wants to go back up to full population, it seems. The thing is, though, that Joe here, he kind of doesn't need... He's got already built all of his upgrades, already researched all of his upgrades that he needs to grab. So really all Joe needs is enough resources to afford to pump these units out. So he could probably... Actually, it's probably a good thing that he loses those villages and doesn't rebuild them. As Mr. Boat pulling back into his main base. Hillfort coming up for some reason here. Joe's still not attempting to grab this town center. A couple of Gastrophedes getting built over here. Can move where? What's he going to do with those? I think Joe's just having fun at this point. It's one of those moments where if you're playing a ladder game here at Mr. Boat, in Mr. Boat's position, you probably tap out. But Mr. Boat here, he wants to put his all into trying to win this game. He gets the champion raiders out. He's got himself bronze shield, bronze weapons. As the armor, he's got it all queued up. As the Gastrophed is just sitting here, waiting, watching. Where's he going to go? So those champion raiders swing through onto this location. But I mean, those hoplites and even the Hypaspist here at 52% hack armor, given the fact that those raiders, they're only dealing, what, 11.2 damage? It's almost like the Hypaspist are actually beating the raiding cavalry at this point, just because of those upgrades. Joe's now trying to get the town center up. Going up to 180 population. Sarissa coming through as well for the help of his hoplites hack armor, which is already high at 52%, but it's going to go up to like 55% or 56% or something like that. 57% there in terms of hack armor. As Joe's still making his army up over here. Town center is now up. More towers coming up on this position. As the ballista's starting to come up. Mr. Boit here has got a lot of resources in the bank. I mean, you got to be a little bit careful from the position of Joe. If Mr. Boit gets some towers up here, he could possibly be in a decent position. As the Gastrophedes knock down that wall and move straight in onto this position, going to be targeting down the tower here, I see. He could kill off the house as well, as he's going straight after this back town center over there, as well as we see the towers coming up for Mr. Boit. Has he sent any units over to this position? I don't see that he has. As Mr. Boat's back town center, he's lost his temple. He's going to be losing this town center very, very fast to these Gastrophedes that just waltz in to the back. I guess the back town center of Mr. Boat. He wasn't putting any effort into defending that. More towers are up on this position, and now Mr. Boat notices the attack on the town center and decides to say, all right, GG, well played, Joe. You get this one. You win this game, and you win this series. As Joe's Hades, very, very terrifying. I think if Mr. Boat had gone for this back town center first, instead of the forward town center, and didn't lose that while he was trying to get it while going up to the heroic age, he would have been in a much, much different position here. But because he was forced into this weird position and that hilarious gold mine play from Joe also managed to work out for him, it put Mr. Boat in an impossible position, in all honesty, and he just could not manage to win this game. If you guys enjoyed this game, please consider hitting the follow on the Twitch. If you're on the YouTube, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next game.